This is Bite-Sized History with the Saints. Hi everyone, it's Megan.
And it's Bradley here again.
So this week we're going to talk about the recipe that we made yesterday. So we ended up for Brazil making kind of a simplistic pumpkin soup.
Very, very simplistic.
One thing to note, pumpkin soup is actually pretty popular in Brazil. They have a modern dish where it has like shrimp and additional vegetables in it. And so we really kind of skinnied that down to make it appropriate for the time period.
Yeah, and we wanted to make a vegetarian meal. We made a vegetarian meal.
Actually, it's a vegan meal. We
Yeah.
went even further.
There we go then.
Yeah, we often don't get to make those, mostly because a lot of times meat is a huge component in older recipes.
Well, I mean, meat is something that when we got a hold of it, it was a great thing to have. And, meat was prevalent, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
Exactly.
So getting meat and putting it into a dish was an amazing thing. And, still is to this day. The fact that we can just go to the store and buy whatever meat we want, whenever we want. I mean, not so much now, thanks to food prices going up. But it's still a incredible thing.
Yeah, and so one of those kind of things, like I remember joking a while back that basically I think everyone would be vegetarian if they had to go hunt their own food. I think the idea of having to go out and do it with a bow and arrow would really make you question, are you really wanting that deer?
Well, yeah, you want that calorie.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that
you would do it.
We hunted meat because, it was calorie dense and it actually did help largely with our development as a species.
True. That is part of the brain development for early life.
But no, that calorie bonus, yes, eating nuts and berries is great and all, but you have to take in so much more of that. And when you're having to gather, there's only so much you have. But meat tends to wander in large groups.
Yeah.
And if you can take in, just get one, that's enough calories to last you guys for a few weeks.
Exactly. And so it's one of those kind of things, like we try to have more variety that'd be more accurate. And like with this dish, we had talked about throwing shrimp into it to make it more like what the modern Brazilian dish is, but we decided let's keep it vegetarian and vegan.
Yeah. And we regret that.
A little bit. It was pretty small of a dinner, but also hearty at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, it was like eating oatmeal, where I eat it, I'm full for like 20 minutes, and then I'm starving again. So it wasn't very filling for me, at least.
Yeah, like I actually really enjoyed it, but I have a smaller appetite, partially because I'm half his size.
Yeah. And the other major turnoff for it was it tasted a little like baby food.
It looked like baby food. That's, for me, was the bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it was just mashed up pumpkin and coconut water. So when you say those two things and you put them together, you don't expect it to be appetizing. And it wasn't exactly appetizing, but it didn't taste bad either.
No.
It was kind of plain.
It was definitely the base to something.
Yeah.
It could have had vegetables and shrimp, and that would have made it better.
Yeah, I think that if we had a little bit more vegetables that we could have thrown into it and made it more of a stew,
Yeah.
then I think it would have been much better and more flavorful. She put some of the Tabasco into it. I didn't use any extra Tabasco because I know that I wouldn't be able to handle that. But it didn't definitely need extra.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, by itself, it really kind of had no flavor. So I added way more Tabasco because that's the kind of person I am. But we've talked about before the unappealingness of some of the food. Early on, when I had made like a red lentil stew for, I think, our first recipe for the Mesopotamian, I pureed it because just lentils looks disgusting. It looks like someone threw up into it. And that happened again when we made the ancient Greek dinner, or it was Persian, where we had stewed lentils, and it looked disgusting by itself.
But see, that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, when we were eating these recipes back when, it was a source of calories. It was a way to get to the next day.
Exactly.
And because we're inundated with so many different options of food today, that if you don't like the way something looks, you don't have to eat it. But that wasn't always the case. And it's not always the case for everybody out there. Sometimes this is all you have.
No ancient world Instagram photos of food.
No. And that's the thing is that when you're just eating this purely for calorie intake, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it tastes like. It just has to take and nourish you. And nowadays, we don't think much about that because, you can buy Oreos and you're going to get calories from them. You're not going to get everything else you need from them, but you're going to get calories.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the huge things about it is like the big part of this journey is finding out what foods nourished people for that time period, regardless of like what we think in modern ways is like appealing. Like not just appearance, but also flavors, storage methods. I mean, there's a lot of different things.
That is one thing that I don't think that we are going to do anytime soon. It's like preparing these so that they could be shelf stable for a little bit. Partially, one, we don't have the setup for it. And two, I don't know if Megan's kidney can actually handle that.
Be so much salt.
So much salt. But the one thing I do have to say about the dish that I actually really enjoyed was I don't usually eat soups or any liquid, really. If it has to go onto a spoon, I tend to avoid it. And that's because I have an essential tremor. But this was so thick that it just stayed on the spoon. And when I think baby food thick. So it just sat. And it was actually kind of nice because I was able to eat a soup.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
Yeah.
So I gave it a little bit higher than I normally would, only because, I felt accomplished actually being able to eat something. Yeah, if you're looking for a meal that is accessibility friendly, somebody that has Parkinson's, essential tremor, some form of tremor, and they can't afford to purchase that amazing $300 spoon, then yeah, this is a great way to, let them
feel like
I don't want to say normal because I feel normal. I am normal.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It felt good.
Yeah, because it's one of those kind of things that like I try when we were making these meals to fit all of our accessibility things because like I have a kidney issue, so I have to have less sodium in food. He has his tremor, so I try to avoid dishes where it would make him feel not accessible while trying to eat them.
Yeah, most of the time, if it's a soup, I just have to pick the bowl up and drink from the bowl. And I don't like that because why am I doing that? It's a personal thing for me. And, being able to use a spoon, it was nice. It's the first time I've used a spoon in a very long while. And one day, maybe I'll be able to afford that $300 spoon.
Someday. We'll see if our insurance will cover it.
I doubt it.
It probably won't.
They don't cover anything worthwhile.
No, they don't. So then talking about the ingredients, one of the things that came up while I was doing the research for this, so pumpkins grow in Brazil. Now, the pumpkins that do are not the pumpkins we think about. And this is mostly due to, again, what we've talked about 1,000 times before, selective breeding. The pumpkin that we kind of think more of today actually has its origins in Mexico. And this is where we domesticated it about 10,000 years ago. And what Brazil would have had would have still been more of the wild pumpkins. They would have been smaller. They would have been very seasonal. Someone had to go out and find them. And that's the assumption we went with this. But we still used a pumpkin puree because I don't think I can get wild pumpkin puree anywhere.
No, and that's the thing is if we were doing this, in October, then getting smaller pumpkins and making it ourselves would have been a lot easier. But pumpkins are well out of season now. And the shelf-stable cans are there. So we kind of cheesed it in a little essence in that way. It's still the same feeling. You're still eating pumpkin. But yeah, we did cheese it.
Yeah. And one of the big things we did is made sure that it was just pumpkin. because a lot of times with these canned goods, there are preservatives in them, like coconut milk with guar gum. So we just made sure we bought just 100% pumpkin.
Yeah.
So moving on to coconuts then. We made coconut milk again to do this.
Yeah, but coconut milk's so easy to make.
It is. It can be kind of hot and an extra step, but it does go really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, put some water on, boil it, put some shredded coconut into a cheesecloth, soak it, squeeze, and you got coconut water. And
it's milk, not water.
the water's the inside of it.
Yeah.
You got coconut milk. There you go. So, I know, it's kind of weird thinking of milk from a coconut. I've got nipples.
And that's how we lose advertising.
Yeah.
But
You're gonna have to edit that part out, aren't you?
no, it should be fine. But I think the big thing with coconuts, and this is something we've brought before, coconuts migrate in a sense that,
I mean, when you have the air-laden velocity of a swallow, it can pick up coconuts.
but in truth, coconuts are notorious for landing in oceans and going to places and still being able to seed and grow a palm tree.
Yep.
And so this is kind of the thing with coconuts. We find them kind of everywhere on a coast.
Yeah.
Just simply because that's how they show up. And that gave us that option with Brazil. So it's one of those kind of things that's like, it's nice to have because it's an alternative. And, the closest thing to cows that we had in the Americas weren't down in South America during this point. So,
yeah. I mean, buffalo were...
Could you imagine milking a buffalo? Back then, not now.
I couldn't imagine getting that close to a buffalo to try to milk it. I know there's somebody out there that's had to have tried it. And they probably regretted the decision almost immediately. They're not alive to tell you the story.
I was going to say.
But, yeah, no. A American bison, no, I don't even want to think of that.
Nope, that'd be so bad.
But, yeah. No, we talked about using tapir. It's kind of pig-like, but it's not pig. And you can't get a hold of it.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the blog, but also we talked about last week, we run into this thing every time when we're working on different cultures. Sometimes you cannot get items from that country due to it's now extinct, or it's endangered, or it's now unethical to eat it.
Yep.
And we kind of just have to work around that.
Yeah, and the same thing goes with a lot of the food, like plant-based foods as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is as time has gone on, we've started to realize that maybe some of these plants that we've transplanted aren't great for the environments that they're in, meaning that they tend to, kill off other species of plant that are actually vital to the area. So it's kind of it's a difficulty that we work around. And at the end of the day, it would be nice just to be able to sit there and go, oh, all right, I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to head to Mexico and we're going to actually use ingredients directly from Mexico.
Maybe someday we had that Gordon Ramsay money.
Oh, man. I got that Gordon Ramsay money. I don't know what I'll do.
Be flying to Mexico for ingredients.
Flying to Mexico for ingredients.
So speaking of Mexico, one of the things that, it's always the fun part about doing this, and especially with like the species that have been evolved over time. When we started working on peppers, I got really excited for Brazil because that's where we can basically consider the origin of the pepper. Brazil is famous for this type of pepper called the malagueta, and it is often used in Portuguese cooking now. Well, the interesting part about this pepper is it's very common. It can be used in a lot of different things. However, it has been crossbred into various species around the world. One of them specifically being the Tabasco pepper, which is where we get Tabasco sauce from. Now, this is usually the part where Brad would, call out that no, Tabasco peppers were not cultivated until the 1840s. And then one, it's not even the same region, so therefore I have done something wrong. Except these have the very, very similar profile. However,
Still wrong.
it is still wrong, and I should have gotten a sauce made from that specific pepper. So, what have we learned?
Megan doesn't do enough research.
I did quite a bit. So this is the worst part. When you look it up, it took me a while to actually find this because even when you look it up, they say Tabasco peppers are these peppers, but they're not.
No, and that's the problem is that we will market things one way because that's the way people expect them to be marketed. And oftentimes when it comes to food, especially food that we have crossbred and have long since gotten rid of the original version of it, we will still call it that original name. And,
Like banana.
well, bananas are still bananas.
Yeah, they're just radically different. And
Yeah, but what I'm talking
out.
about is like, a chili pepper.
Yeah.
We still call pretty much any pepper a chili pepper.
Yeah, I definitely am thinking about doing some future shorts talking about the origins of chili peppers and like how they spread around the world because it's kind of fascinating that the idea that just a few initial species have now become thousands of different variations that grow all around the world in different ways. I think the chili pepper by itself is its own amazing topic.
Yeah, people love spice. And, we actually evolved to enjoy that spice, some of us. I have not evolved that far yet.
He can barely handle pepper.
Yeah, but when we came across it, when Europeans, this is what I mean, came across it, and they brought it back, it quickly spread across Europe and Asia. And it's because people love spice. I don't know why. I honestly don't understand what all the hubbub is about it. But you know what? I'm not going to judge you for liking your spices.
Well, like all things, once those chilies were planted in a different soil in a different region with different climates, they grew differently.
Yeah, it's like coffee in that aspect.
Exactly.
Where, coffee, I believe it was Ethiopia, is where it originated at. And, now you get Peruvian blends, Chilean blends, I mean, a lot of South American blends. And it's because, growing them at certain heights and altitudes and all that and how much sunlight they get affects the flavor. And it's the same way with chili peppers.
Exactly. And so it's kind of cool, honestly. I feel like that part, even though I technically led us astray, it gave me it gave me an amazing starting point for more information in the future. And that's the thing. We occasionally talk about going back to some of these dishes, and so it's like I plan on making this soup again, and I plan on using the right sauce and throwing some shrimp in there and making it a bit more fun.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I think that once this is all said and done, we might take and do a redo of some of the less liked recipes and see if we can't still keep them as original as possible, but taking the knowledge that we have learned over the time of doing this and redoing the recipe and maybe salvaging that recipe. Maybe.
Like
Some of them I don't think will ever get salvaged.
I don't think the Dan Dan noodles can ever be saved.
No.
That was bad.
Yeah, no. But that's only because modern Dan Dan noodles have a whole lot of different stuff in them that
Wouldn't have existed.
yeah. But that's the thing is that we've learned a lot doing this. We're still learning a lot.
Yeah.
And we may just be able to go back and redo some of them.
Which is going to be fun, and that's something we're really looking forward to.
Yeah.
So with that, for the rest of this week, we're going to be working on figuring out what the dessert is going to be. We do have some fun ingredients that we have options to use, like pineapples, honey, ground nuts, which, as we specified, are peanuts, and vanilla.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to think through what our...
I wonder what peanuts soaked in vanilla would taste like.
That's a good question.
I don't know.
That's something we might check into.
Yeah. So yeah, with the knowledge that we might be soaking peanuts in vanilla, I think we might as well just wrap it up today. It's got nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a pretty small week. This is always the joys of right after the recipe week. We're going to have to start planning out for the next region because since, again, we ran into that issue with access to ingredients for Brazil, we might just have to keep moving on.
Yeah. And, you know, good chance that when we hit North America, we may just spend like 2 months in North America. I doubt it. But we'll have so many ingredients that we can have access to that we just might get overwhelmed and decide to skip North America.
We're just going to put everything and cover everything in maple syrup.
Oh, I think we have a maple tree in the backyard. I might just go out and tap it.
Oh, God.
Especially with how expensive maple syrup is now.
Yeah, it was.
For some reason, we live in Canada. I know, a little tyrant right quick, and I'm sorry we said we were wrapping it up, but we live in Canada. We live in Canada. Why is maple syrup so expensive?
It was almost $20.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, I understand that, you know, it's a time-intensive process and whatnot, but then don't pride yourself as a country on this one product.
Like being from Kansas and having to pay like $20 for a loaf of bread.
Or just like being from Kansas and sitting there going, well, you know, I went down to the local barbecue joint and it cost me $190 just for this rack of ribs. No, that's not the way this works. No. I don't know what's wrong with you, Canada, but you need to figure it out. Figure it out. Don't pride yourself on being the maple syrup capital of the world if you're then going to sit there and go, well, we're going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. No. No. Subsidize it. I don't care.
Brad's like, I will not get my citizenship until maple prices go down.
I mean, everybody's got a maple tree in their yard. I don't know why we don't just sit there and the Canadian government, when you move into a place, doesn't just sit there and go, here, this is to tap the maple tree to get all the maple you want. Welcome to Canada. Sorry. We'll end the episode now.
With that, we hope you guys have a fantastic week. And check out the Patreon for the bonus recipe and the ad-free version of the podcast. So,
Well, thank you guys.
thanks. Bye, guys.